on S37. So what we've been doing is having the folks present the amendment. If we have any legal questions, we have legislative staff here, and then we'll have a discussion and do a straw vote.
Okay.
Turn it over to you.
This is a first for me, so you're my practice group.
Okay, so first, introduce yourself for the record.
Yep. My name is Representative Terry Lynn Williams. I represent Essex Caledonia, and I'm here today to offer an amendment on S37. I expect you all recognize my pleas on the floor for equity. I work very hard in this building for equity, as I know most of you do too. And I found a spot on this bill that I feel isn't and needs some balance there. As I said, I'm looking at line 12 on page 8, where the coverage says a health insurance plan shall provide coverage for abortion and abortion-related care. And I would like it to read, a health insurance plan shall provide coverage for reproductive health care services. So it encompasses all health care, not just abortion.
Okay.
That's where I stand with that.
Okay. Alyssa.
I'm just thinking about all the reproductive health care services that currently are not covered with zero copay, coinsurance deductible, and that would include full pregnancies, which would be really, I would think we would need to take testimony from the insurance companies because that would impact premiums significantly.
So you've taken testimony in reference to the abortion part of it.
Yes.
Yes.
And the response was?
That they are covering this today for the most part. In some cases, they are not. But changing the language to require the coverage will not increase premiums. It will have no fiscal impact. If we expand it, we won't know that impact without talking to the insurers.
May I ask why that wasn't part of the conversation to start with in order to have an equitable plan here?
This was how the bill came to us from the Senate, and we did not, I don't think, really have a conversation with the insurers about anything other than this section.
It's never brought up. And
the point is, it may be covered, right? I mean, it's probably part of our essential health benefits in the state, some level of pregnancy, if not all, but
may be covered.
yeah, I mean, and most likely is, I mean, when I had a baby, I had coverage, not, for everything. I had cost sharing. So I just, to this point, it would be hard to move forward not knowing the fiscal impact.
Do you see the inequity of the bill? Understanding that a lot more research should be done in order for the amendment to take place potentially, but the fact that it didn't get put on there to begin with, it reads an imbalance. It reads an imbalance, and I'm surprised it wasn't caught as an imbalance.
I personally don't see it as inequitable. Our focus is on this case goes on abortion, and that's what we.
Yeah, so.
Other questions or comments? Because I don't want to dominate the conversation. Alyssa, and then we'll go to Art.
I would just make the point that our entire system of healthcare, therefore, is unequitable because all services are not covered.
So
It's not paid for at 100%. So, I mean, if we had universal healthcare, then it would be equitable, but I don't think we're at that point yet.
is it not the responsibility of us, the legislature, to help work towards that equity? And wouldn't this be a major play in that?
You make some good points, and we struggle with that every time anyone comes forward and says, we would like you to cover this. We have to understand the fiscal impacts before we can make that decision. Art?
Is it possible that a health insurance plan could cover abortion, but not reproductive health? Is that even conceivable, given that an abortion is part of reproductive health, because we defined it that way? Termination of pregnancy.
I'm looking up the Vermont Essential Health Benefits to see what is covered. I'm not an insurer, I'm not DFR, but if you go to the Vermont Health Connect website, and it has essential health benefits, oh, right there. It is visits to your healthcare provider. We have 10 essential health benefits that must be covered. Visits to your healthcare provider's office, hospital stays, emergency room visits, care for a mother and child before, during, and after birth. But to cover it with no cost share, which is what we're doing here, which is already happening today, to cover everything that includes the care for the mother and child before, during, and after birth, would have a fiscal impact, and without taking testimony from insurers, we will not know what that is.
I also wanted to add that in our definition of reproductive health care, it is assisting in pregnancy. So in other words, infertility services. And we did take extensive testimony last year on possibly expanding that in our essential health benefits, and the fiscal impact was quite large.
Oh, right, yes, we did. Yeah, that was also.
So we're going to take care of abortions, but we're not going to take care of pregnancy because we look at the dollar.
No, so we do take care of pregnancy. This is cost sharing.
Let's take care of.
No. So it is part of the Vermont Essential Health Benefits. We have 10 things we must cover, insurance companies in Vermont. The care for mother and child before, during, and after birth is covered. However, that doesn't include cost sharing. So the copay you might have, the deductible you might have to pay. And so in the bill for Section 4, we are codifying what is already in practice today. All the insurance companies, MVP, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Medicaid came in and said they're covering abortion today, and we are expanding no cost sharing for a small segment of people, and there is no fiscal impact. To expand no cost sharing to the care for mother and child before, during, and after birth, unfortunately, there would be a cost shift. There'll be a cost to that. We have to know what that is before we can.
So what are the chances that you're going to pursue that in the future to get?
It's would be something the committee could decide to take up at a later date if they want to.
Is this something that could be tied to a bill that's moving separate from what we have here?
We do not have any other bills moving out of this committee that I think that would be germane to. The bills we're moving out of this committee for the rest of the time we're here are mental health related. Right?
We do have universal primary care that we can do next year, and that would probably cover it.
And again, we'd have to take a lot of testimony on that too.
Well, there's nothing against taking a lot of testimony, right? And that's why we
I mean, I can't commit to what our priorities are going to be next year. That's a great point.
Okay. I will just say one more thing, and then I'll let you vote, that I hope that when you work on your priorities, that you work on equity. And that's where I come from almost every time I have a conversation. Balance and equity.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's do any further committee discussion, Brian?
I would say the only reason I won't support it is that we have no clue what the fiscal impact would be, but I support the principle of it. Yeah. And I think we need to go further than that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I would just piggyback on that. We made one type of care you know, and made it no copay. When we start, then that's why it's dangerous to do this. You start down that path, and now when do you stop? And what is equitable? And when can it be equitable? And that's why this is dangerous to even do it, so.
Yes.
I just also want to validate like that, like about, I don't want to assume your concern, but we've heard witnesses express concern about people not being able to afford to have a kid and feeling forced by the economic dynamics into terminating a pregnancy. I've known people who've had to do that. And it's
Yes.
hard for them.
Yes.
And I just want to validate that because we should be living in a society where we support people to like really be able to make the choice they want to make and not have to make a choice because of economic injustice. Yeah.
Any other thoughts before we vote? All those in favor of supporting the amendment? All those against supporting the amendment? So it's 10-1 favorable. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Thanks, Larry.
All right, Pam. And just got a text that they're just starting the devotional, so.
I haven't even done announcements yet. We get another hour.
Welcome, and I know you were busy earlier, so thank you for being here. So we are now, that's an amendment, which begins on the calendar on page 1973, the top, and then someone said page 6 on the
Yeah, 1973.
page, section 6, page 10, I believe, the top of the page. Sorry, and we're all working off of the paper copy we had, not the calendar.
Oh,
The
really?
calendar, it's, I don't know.
I'm looking at my calendar on my phone, so tell me if I'm looking at the wrong thing. Is it about section 6?
Yes, it's about
I
section
see it,
6,
yeah.
so in the calendar, that is on page,
1973.
no, 1959.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the problem is it was yesterday's calendar versus today's calendar. You know, you work off one and then you get the new one.
But the thing that's on, oh God, I hope I'm looking at the right thing.
It's on page 10 on the bill, top of page.
Yeah,
Right, in today's calendar, it is on page 1959.
yeah.
So I'm not looking at this.
Page 9.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at the right thing. Just
Page section 6,
house plate.
29A, unprofessional conduct. I'm comparing this and this. No, I'm comparing it.
Thank you. Okay, yes, okay, so I'm looking at the right stuff.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Jen, for clarifying that. All right, is everyone in the right places?
No, I'm not, but I'll get there.
Okay.
I should keep going.
And whenever you're ready.
So Representative Van Donahue, and yes, I understand that the portion on unprofessional conduct that added regarding the so-called medication abortion reversal was sort of a, you know, a late addition, a late recognition of a problem to address. And I think in that sense, it may have been, I don't know, it appeared maybe there were some unintended consequences of the breadth of the wording because we don't know where best practices emerge as we go along and so forth. So this is sort of becomes a total ban as being unprofessional conduct. You know, sort of for anything in this realm, providing or claiming to provide services that would reverse the effects. And I mean, I actually don't think, well, there may be people claiming it. You can't actually reverse the effects of the abortion that's been completed. It is what it is. But I know that terminology is used, or I learned, wasn't even aware of it. So what I'm proposing is to try to clarify between, you know, what is permissible and what isn't by adding that it's not, if you're looking at my wording on 1973 of today's calendar, wording that it's not unprofessional if acting within the scope of practice and meeting existing standard of care in prescribing something that is an off-label use, which I think in this committee, that off-label uses are very common, doesn't mean that they're automatically meeting a standard of care. So this would require meeting that standard of care. If a medication is provided to assist someone who has changed their mind, in effect, basically, right after taking a medication abortion, the first part, has decided they want to exercise the right to choose to bear the child when they've initiated but not completed the process of a medication abortion. So it's an attempt to really clarify and distinguish between things that are both within a scope of practice and do meet existing standards of care in attempting to support someone who's wants to make a choice that's changing what they had previously made a decision or immediately previously wants to change their mind and supporting their right to do that. So that's it.
Comments, Maureen?
I have a few concerns with this. First of all, this is not necessary because in general, I'm not talking about the medication that this is alluding to, but not stating specifically. In general, off-label use of medications and implements that might be inserted in a patient's body, like a cardiac stent. It is common to have off-label use of those. So if there truly was a medication that met not just standards of care, that's one area in medicine. There's also those standards of care actually, standards of practice are built on rigorous studies based on the highest quality level of evidence available at the time. And there are different levels, there are different schemas, different hierarchies used. But standards of practice are a compilation of standards developed over time with healthcare professionals, legal experts that use this quality of evidence. The highest level of evidence would be meta-analysis, prospective, double-blind, control group, multi-center, large sample size, randomized controlled trials. The least quality evidence, the weakest evidence are like one or two person medical expert opinions without critical appraisal and case series without any controls, no IRB approval. And now I'll get to the medication that I think that this amendment is alluding to, and that's the use of progesterone for so-called medication reversal. And so my concern is that a provider might read that and think that that's what this is talking about, and go ahead and prescribe progesterone to a pregnant person that had taken mifepristone, and there's no evidence to show, there's no quality evidence to show that that is effective or safe. There was a case series that discussed an incredibly small sample size. There were 6 women, and they were given progesterone 1 to 2 days after they took the mifepristone. And a large percentage of women continue their pregnancy after taking mifepristone. If they make it to 1 to 2 days after taking mifepristone, they're going to continue their pregnancy. That's what the statistics show. So progesterone in this case series was given at 1 to 2 days later. So small sample size, not IRB approved, no evidence. They can't really say that because 4 out of 6 women continued with their pregnancies, after being given progesterone. That's not evidence. So we already have a really strong scientific-based process to use medication for off-label basis. And I would hate to put into the law something that the medical board and the Office of Professional Regulation already do a good job of looking at. So I don't want to put into statute, especially as there's evolving research, as the field of medicine is always evolving. I don't want to put something that specific in there, which I also think is misleading.
And
Yeah, so I think you may have been like way jumping the gun because I was not intending to reference current, whatever current things are happening that do not meet those standards. The point here was that I think the language that was put in is really broad and doesn't really meet what would be considered not unprofessional conduct, and that it might, on the contrary, make people feel that they could not use treatments that may not exist today. I'm not making any judgment about what does or doesn't. My understanding is that there is not. There is not the standard of evidence that we would use for anything that currently is used today. That's why I wasn't attempting to strike the existing language or anything like that. I think the problem with the existing language is it doesn't allow for, if something does meet that standard, allow for that to be used for the interruption of what, and it's specific to, medication abortions because that's what the specificity of the piece that was added in your bill was, it's very specific to an unprofessional thing, which would be doing something that doesn't currently meet standards. I mean, it almost seems like what's being added isn't really necessary because it's describing something that would be unprofessional, doing something misleading, providing something that doesn't meet standards of care. But because it's being put in, I thought it was important to say, but hold up, if it is something that does meet those standards, maybe it's not worded properly in terms of what it means to meet those standards that our professional responsibility board and so forth would expect. But if it is something that meets those, this language that's been put into the bill in 29 does not mean that you can't do something that does meet the standards. So it's to try to not make the existing 29, as you've added it, misunderstood to mean that if there was something that in fact meets standards of care within scope of practice.
so, Ann, I'm going to stop you. I'm sorry to do this, but so I was asked by committee members that once we start the S5 floor debate, that we hold this and go to the floor. So they just started. So I will check with the speaker on when we can come back here. So sorry, Ann.
No, appreciate it. I want to be there
Yeah.
too. So.
They just